Thank you all so much for coming to customer service. What do your employees mean to you webinar today? And I am going to turn it over to Dwight. If you have any questions for me, shoot me a message in the chat box and I can take care of that for you. Thank you all so much. Again, if you have not, please type your name in the chat box. If you're sharing a device, please list all names so that everyone gets credit. All right, let's go, Dwight.
Thanks, Nicole. So one of the things that Nicole was talking about, she's in South Carolina, and she said it's dark and cloudy, and I don't feel bad for her. She's in South Carolina, but I do want to let all of you all know that yesterday was Nicole's birthday. And so just so everybody knows on there, you can mark it on your calendar. She's 29 and holding. That's what she told me. Oh, and that's what we're sticking with. So, but it's great. Thank you, Nicole.
Thank
So
you.
we only got an hour. So I'm going to get to it. One of the things that these Wednesday webinars have allowed people to do, I think, is to just take a little break. What I'm hoping to be able to do is give you a couple things. Some of you've worked a long time. Some of you feel like today's been a long time. So either what place that you are, I want to try to give you a couple hints or tips. Got about 3 slides, so it's not really slide heavy, but you know, in this day and age, it's always a different thing, and what are we doing, and that kind of thing. So I really encourage and request that any kind of help or things that could make things better to send those in. At the end, I'll have my email up there, but I definitely appreciate any kind of feedback, good, bad, or indifferent. And so as we go forward, again, the chat box is open. And if you have something, or if you want to take yourself off mute, however you want to do it. I've done a couple of these, and I've yet to hear a person, their voice other than at the very end, but that's okay. It's just an hour, and a lot of you have other things going on. So we're going to address that. So when I was talking to KTC earlier last year, or late last year, about these, one of the things I'm trying to stress as I work with different companies is the most important customers that you have are the ones inside your building. And right now, some of you all are customers of your company, and you're inside your own house, but you're still the most important customer. We really spend a lot of time dealing with customer service on the outside. And so today we're going to talk a little bit about the customers on the inside. So that's what I'm going to do. If you have a question or anything, like I said, just let me know, and we'll get started. So customer service, what do your employees mean to you? When I'm in a regular class talking about this, when I put that up there, everybody's kind of like, oh, I thought we were going to learn, you know, those things that we read about, those survey answers that we see. This isn't like that. This is going to be more about you and what you can do. Maybe you can do differently, or maybe you can do in addition to something else you're doing. The other thing about this is some of you all are great at taking care of your employees. Some of you probably have awards or certificates or recognition or cards or those special conversations you've had with people where you've done a good job taking care of your people. I've been working for 32 years, 33 years now, I guess, in the workplace. And I didn't retire from transportation. I keep changing that, but for some reason, I guess I'm so old that they want to keep saying I retired from there. I left after 14 years and have done some other things since then. So, but I did spend 14 years in a cabinet, and my dad retired from materials, and my mom retired from Kentucky Retirement System. So that's just a little bit about me. We're going to move on through so that we can get through our hour. And like I said, if you've got something, please, Bruce, I see you type there. It was great when I saw your name on there. I remember Bruce Sire. So let's, who's the most important? You all have comments and thoughts, and feel certain ways about, are the outside customers more important, or the inside customers more important? I am going to be stressing that I believe, after 32 years in the workplace and working at a lot of different organizations, that those employees that are inside are the most important. If you take care of them, they're going to take care of your external customers. So we're going to also cover the 3 F's, and I have in parentheses there could be 4. So a lot of times when you go to a training, or you're reading something, or you get a list, it's 3 or it's 5 or it's 7. And so just trying to mix it up a little bit, but I'm going to give you three three F words that you can use to take care of your customers, and we'll go over those. And then the last one is how to be different. One of the things that all of you all know in the day-to-day work is your employees are different now than they've ever been. Some of them are similar. Some of them remind you of maybe other folks you've worked with and that type of thing. But the new ones you're getting, new to you or new to the workplace at all, they're different. There is no way to say that there's something, there's no actual, there's all kinds of data about which generation does what or how people do things. The bottom line is that it's different than it's ever been. And so you have folks who work for you that have different opinions about what's important. They have different opinions about how to take care of people. They have different opinions about how they want to be treated. And so that's the kind of the stress of what we're going to talk about, the stress of that interaction that you have with your folks. If you work for city or county, local government, state government, sometimes there's very finite points where you've done your job or done it well, and it's very specific. When you're interacting with people on a day-to-day basis, the folks that you see on Monday morning, the folks that you see on Friday afternoon, the folks that you see the day after somebody and their family died, the folks that you see the day after somebody gets a diagnosis, those are different relationships than those relationships you have with those people who are coming to use your services. And so, and I don't want to be Dwight Downer. The day after they find out they're going to have a new grandbaby, the day after they find out somebody's going to graduate. So all those things come into play, and you deal with those. And I think those are more important at the end of the day than all of the other interactions with those external folks. So I don't want anybody to say that, oh, well, I watched this seminar and this guy said, don't take care of the customer. That's not what I'm saying at all. I'm just saying that sometimes we need to refocus who our customer is. So, all right. So when we're talking about our customer support, we're all about fast. We're about speed. Wherever you are, you might have metrics that are measuring how quick you interact with customers, how fast you get them through the process or finish whatever it is you're working on and that kind of thing. I don't know, most of you as leaders, as folks who are in the workplace probably work more than 40 hours a week. You are some of you are probably, coming up close to doubling that on the time you spend with work. I'm going to toss out a couple numbers because I know I've got some engineers and former engineers and planners and those types of folks on here. I'm going to toss out a couple numbers. So, in the course of a 40-hour work week, we've got 2,400 minutes. That's all I'm talking about. I'm not talking about the overtime or the time you work or all the time you spend not in between there. So we're just going to talk about the 2,400 minutes. And in a classroom setting, I would have you raise your hand or something. But real quick, if you can, if you can reach your chat, or if you could just, how many minutes a day do you spend with your internal people? Try to be truthful. How many one-on-one, how many minutes a day do you spend with your internal staff?
I'm not gonna read the chat to you when they come in.
Yeah. So 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 30 minutes.
30 minutes from Brian says 30.
Yeah.
John Baker says I'm retired now. Randy says 30 minutes. Randy Williams says 30 minutes.
Wow. Okay. So, and we're going to keep moving because we do have limited time. 30 minutes is amazing. I can probably just stop right now, and all of you all are way ahead of the game. The average from supervisors when given a survey by SHRM, Society of Human Resource Management, the average was people hope to get 5 minutes one-on-one with their employees a day. So if you're getting 30, that's wonderful. If you think you're getting 30, we're going to talk about that. So maybe you're not, and maybe you think you're getting 30, and maybe your employee thinks it's less than that. And we're going to talk about some of the factors that play into that. the challenge I would put out there is 10 to 15 minutes a day. Now, if you work in an office that's got 10 people that report to you, that may mean that there's a meeting that everybody's in, or you have two meetings where half your people are in each one. But 75 minutes per week seems to be a number that employees really want. They want an hour, hour and a half, somewhere in between there. And so to take the middle there, 75 minutes per week is what employees would like to have with their supervisor. And we can sit here and think, oh, okay, well, we can arrange that. Or if we have an hour-long meeting with everybody, some folks think that as part of that 75 minutes. A lot of the folks that are coming in the workplace now want some one-on-one time. They want to be able to share their idea. They want to be able to tell you. They want you to tell them. And I can see by some of your eyes that, it's like this, it can't happen. It's not possible. And we're going to talk a little bit about that, but I think it's possible. And I definitely think it makes a different workplace. And so it may help you in the long run to get some more of your minutes back if you do some things differently with the time that you do have them. So that's 3.12% for you numbers folks. 3.12% of your 40 hours. If you spent 75 minutes a week with them, that's 3.12%. I would challenge you and for you to think about or make a list, or some of you may even know, what do you spend more than 3.12% on during the course of the week? I'm going to say probably everything. I'm guessing that it would be that they are looking at or seeing you, or hearing you, or getting an email from you, or something to that effect. But it's that one-on-one time or that interaction time that you have with them that could really make a difference. And so, Brian, I appreciate the feedback, and I think that there's a whole lot of validity to different ways for different folks. So the second F word is fully. Everybody on here, not everybody, a couple folks aren't, but most everybody on here has got this on. You're listening to it. You're doing something else. You're taking, this is the time you're going to eat your lunch or your breakfast. You're filing, you're watching something else. You're listening. You have mute on. You're listening to something else because you're getting the credit. That's all true and understandable. What I'm going to say is that when the person on the receiving end knows you're doing something else, that time doesn't really count. A lot of times in the workplace, I've heard from when I go in and talk to new workplaces that I'm going to be working with, all the supervisors talk about how, oh yeah, with our teams meetings, I'm able to do some other things while I'm on there. If you have your camera on, some of those things are limited. All of you can probably attest to the fact that some of them aren't. I've been on these classes before, and I've seen people doing things that I just couldn't imagine that they were okay being on camera to do. And but that's what we do. We've become comfortable with how we interact. We've become comfortable with having something on and doing something else. Back in the day when it was just the phone, people would be trying to sneak a bite, or they would be working on filing, or they'd be working on their computer. And, none of us were ever fooled. There's a microphone on the end of that receiver, and it amplifies things, and we could hear the keyboard. We could hear or see that you were doing other things. Well, in this day and age, with either, Zoom or webinar, Teams, or just literally being in your office, everybody, and especially employees, recognize that you're doing something else. 30 years of being married, 32 in the workplace, the whole multitask discussion would take a lot longer than an hour. I've talked to some very sophisticated, intelligent, learned people who are hell-bent on the fact that they can multitask. I've also read thousands and thousands of words about how people don't multitask as well as they think. Some of you right now are offended that I would even say that you couldn't do it, but I will stick by that statement that you don't do it as well as you think you do. And so I think in the workplace, the workforce is starting to really recognize that. and they don't consider multitask time as taking care of them as much as it's just something to kind of get through and get other things done. Now, I've been in the workplace and seen and know that some of you are thinking, well, I'd never get everything done if I didn't do 3 things at once. And I'm going to pose to you that if you concentrated and finished the one thing, that you would be able to get all 3 of those things done if you spent the time to do that. And so sometimes that means having boundaries with your people, with your employees. Sometimes it means figuring out ways to have boundaries with your other aspects of your life. So in the workplace, I'm talking about the workplace, all these things can transfer. So again, I've said it, but I just want to stress that if you're doing something else while you're having your minutes, your time, your one-on-one, if you're doing something else, they know it, and part of your brain knows it. And so you miss things. You don't hear something exactly the right way. You transpose things, or you miss out on something that's really important. I would say that probably the best aspect of the time you spend with your employees is the time that you can actually look at them. Zoom and Teams have become the norm for a lot of folks. That's still better than just the phone. But I don't know that there's many folks in the workplace today, especially in supervisor roles, that don't pick up things from the nonverbal. When you're interacting with someone, the way they're handling themselves, the way if they're fidgety, if they're rushing, or they're not looking at you, if they've changed in the way they interact with you. All of those are things that let you know that the message that you're trying to get across, or the interaction you're trying to have, there may be some sort of distraction. And so that's kind of the challenge. The fully word is that I think as human beings, and certainly as leaders, certainly as people who achieve things, which is what all of you all are doing and continue to do, want to do, we feel like we have to do everything all the time. And I just want to throw out there that I think you'd be better at the things you do if you focused on 1 or 2, and then when you're interacting with people, even if you gave a person 5 minutes uninterrupted, direct, that you're looking at them, that you're interacting with them, and they know you're hearing them, and there's nonverbal between you all, those 5 minutes would feel like a lot longer time to them. Some of you aren't comfortable with that. Sometimes we have risen to positions because of our technical abilities and that skill set, and we're just not really comfortable with that. So we multitask while we're talking to somebody so that we don't have to have eye contact and those types of things. The workplace is changing. It has changed already, but it's going to continue to, and how we interact with other human beings, especially the ones we see all of the time. The other part of the question about how much time do you spend with your employees versus how much time do you spend interacting with your customers, your external customers. And depending upon your role, obviously there's going to be lots of time spent with them. That's your job. But as a supervisor, as a leader, as an elected official, you give time to your constituents. Do you give that much time as far as one-on-one or personally? Do you do that with the folks that work inside or with the group that you work with every day? A lot of folks tell you it doesn't matter. Oh yeah, no, I know you're the busiest person I know, and you don't worry about it and things like that. I'm going to tell you, a few 100,000 people over the years, a lot of businesses, it does matter. And I think if you ask yourself, does it matter? Think about a time when you were talking to somebody and they weren't just paying attention, they were doing other things. How'd you feel? And most of the time folks would say, hey, it doesn't matter, no big deal. Or they're going to say, well, I could tell they were busy, so I wasn't really worried about it. And we always kind of take it, but what we really think about sometimes is different. And we're thinking that might not be, they didn't hear us, or they don't really care, or that type of thing. Now, I'm not going over the side soft and saying you have to coddle every rainbow and pet every unicorn. What I'm saying is 2, 3, 4 minutes of good interactive time with your people once or twice a day could actually change your workplace. It could actually help so much that it feels different at your workplace. And I think most supervisors that I've met over the years, and certainly leaders of any sort, title or not, leaders want other folks to feel good too. There's exceptions to that. We don't have the time for us to compare those names, but for the most part, especially servants, and that's what you guys are, you all have done the things or doing the things you've done for other people. And if you're on here and the only thing that ever mattered in the whole wide world was you, I would challenge that you wouldn't even be on here if that was truly the case. And I would also question your thoughts on going into government or any kind of government work if all you cared about was you. That might not have been the best choice. And you can email me, not KTC. That's me. So fully, fast and fully. Those are two ways. Our first two F's, and then our third and or fourth F. And I did that because we've got two F's in this one, is face to face. I talked about it with fully because that really matters in the fully, but there's still more to the face-to-face thing. There's still an element that with changes in the workplace, with remote work, with decreased employees or decreased staff, a lot of these things have changed over the last 3 to 4 years, more so than they changed, 15 years previous. And so face-to-face, like I said, the best case scenario is in person. It's just a completely different environment. You might not be able to because of location, might not be able to because of the way your work is set up. But if you can, that's the best. The second best would be this method that we're using right now, and having that virtual webinar. It's better than a phone because of those nonverbals. Now, that being said, if you don't know what you look like on the camera, or you don't know what your background does as far as distractions, or if you spend your whole time looking at yourself on your camera during those meetings, that can really have a detrimental impact. I don't know if any of y'all have ever been on one of those webinars where I guess somebody can see themselves, in a big blown up view. And so they continue and they're just really trying to take care of things on their face. All of those things are distracting, but they're amplified with a camera. They're amplified when you may even be the focus of the conversation. Some of you are whiz bangs at using this technology and those types of things, and so whoever's speaking or whoever's the noise is coming through, they're going to be the focus. And if that person is distracting, then it will take away tremendously from the meeting. One of the things that's on here, why I've gotten comments back by people don't comment or don't talk on these on a webinar, is because it's choppy, or because they don't sometimes they don't hear if somebody else is talking, so they'd rather either just chat or not say anything. When you have a lot of people, I agree that it can have there's all kinds of reasons. If I'm talking about when you're dealing with your internal customers, your employees, one-on-one or in small groups, it works really well. I don't think it's as effective to have that interaction otherwise with big groups and things like that. Now, I do think that it's a great way to get information out there. I think it's a great way to have a personal touch. I love the fact that KTC says, or I guess it's the city governments, local governments say, you need to have your camera on the whole time, because when you get on a webinar, there are analytics that could show you how many minutes the person has this particular participation or this particular conversation up on their fore screen, or if it's minimized and all those kinds of things. And all of that data is being collected. But more importantly, there's those interactions, there's those head shakes, there's those, if you've ever spoken to anyone, you can have some back and forth, and so that both people feel more engaged or more a part of it. And so that's a big part of face-to-face. The other thing is calling people by name. your customers, some of you elected officials, and I've been around and love being around elected officials. And I know elected officials who the first time they ever meet somebody, they either have this gift and or they've worked out a technique that any point in time after that, when they see that person, they know their name. But in their office, they may not know the new clerk, or they may not know the new admin person. And it would be disheartening if you're the person, the employee, whose boss doesn't know their name, or whose supervisor doesn't know their name, and you see them know everybody else's name. I've talked to a few people about this actual thing and what does it mean. And one example is if you're walking in a crowded area and you hear your name, you will stop and you will look for where that came from. Some of us are desensitized enough that we could hear other things being said and we may not even stop. But if you hear your name, you would stop. So, or at least pause. And depending on what your name is, a lot of times you may do that in a big crowd anyway, because it's something that sounds like your name. And so what I want to encourage you as, as you interact with folks, and memory is a part of it, that some of us have better ones than others. Some of us just, that's not our thing. We remember faces, not names. I'm just going through all the list of all of those things are true. But I just want to encourage you, knowing one of your employees or your coworker's name, knowing how they pronounce it. Talk about a whole nother set of classes. The workforce is changing and people's names are changing, and depending on where you are in the United States, some names are more common than others' names. I can't count how many times I've introduced myself and said, "Hi, my name is Dwight," and the very next time they say, "How are you doing, Dwayne?" And so it's something that I know is going to happen. And I sometimes I'm sure I have a Kentucky accent, but I don't ever Dwight never sounds like Dwayne, other than the D in the beginning. But that's what we do because that's a name they've heard more often. So if you have a really common name, or your folks, if you have 3 Bobs, I can remember back in the day, some of you don't remember this, but some of you certainly will. We would have ways we'd say, Bob 1, or Big Bob, or Little Bob, or, Messy Bob, or all those things. They worked. They're not acceptable now. So, if you've got Bob J and Bob R and Bob L, then it might be good to learn what that last name is and to be able to say that. I'm not saying formality is required. I'm saying being able to be at least respectful enough that you say their name, you say it the right way, and you say it correctly. If it's a name that's really tough for you to say, ask them, how do you say your name? And people, oh, you can't do that. I mean, I have a master's in HR. You can ask somebody how to pronounce their name. There's obviously wrong ways you can go about that. But if it's somebody you work with or a new employee that you have, asking them that to find out. Now, the thing is if you ask them, you need to say their name the way they told you when you asked them. I've worked for people have explained how to say their name or what they would like to be called, and then the very next time they don't do that. And so all of these things come down to the fact that I'm not presenting anything new that you haven't heard. Some of you have tried and could argue with me that any of these things work. What I'm trying to do is give everybody something that maybe a different way of looking at it, or maybe there's a way to go back and revisit. So names are important, learning your folks' names. And then what do they care about? Some of a customer walks in, maybe you're in the same county, you've lived there, their grandparents, their parents. And so when you ask them a question, it's something about what they care about. I was at an event last weekend where there were lots of our local officials, And when they would talk to someone, it's, "Hi, Susan, how is Mike?" Or, "Hi, Mike, how are the kids?" And those types of things. Many of you would probably be amazed at the supervisors, leaders, um, folks in organizations that don't know what's important to the people that work for them, or that they work with. Now, there are a few things that you can do to kind of help with it, looking at their work area. If you're remote, or if they're remote, that's a little more difficult. Um, it's a novel concept, but actually asking them what they care about. Again, not illegal, not wrong to do. Obviously, there's wrong ways to do it, but if you have a new employee, or you have an employee that maybe you've worked with for 20 years, and everything's just been very superficial, and everything's been just yes and no, and good morning and good afternoon, and have a good break, or enjoy your time away. If that's what it's been, and if that's your personality, and you feel like all of your employees are acting and reacting the best possible way, then go for it. If you have a well-oiled machine that has no hiccups, keep doing what you're doing. None of these things, I'm not suggesting that any of these things to interrupt what you're already doing. But I would say that if you've ever had that uncomfortable discussion, or that uncomfortable interaction, some people are morning people, some people are not morning people. That is not determined solely on how much coffee they drink, or if they're smiling. My son, I have 3 sons, and through their entire lives, the oldest is 24 now, and the youngest is 26. And through their lives, we've talked a lot about facial expressions, and how you can portray, how you can put the message out there just by your facial expression. And what's amazing is generationally how different generations think about facial expressions. It's amazing culturally how people think about facial expressions. And so asking a person what they care about, you're going to, first thing I will tell you, if you ask and you're genuine about it, and they believe you're genuine about it, one of the very first things you're going to see is a facial expression that is a pleasant one for them. And what's important about that, I think, is that sometimes we assume, a straight liner, a person who doesn't smile, or who doesn't frown, who's just a straight liner, just kind of straight across, and with their mouth, that they're not happy, or they're not sad, or they're not whatever. Sometimes a straight is the best, like that's as good as you're going to get, as far as demonstrative, and that's okay. That's who they are. But it's good to know that. The other thing is when you ask that question, what do you care about? Don't assume that you know what it is. I know folks who assume that every grandparent only thinks about their grandkids. And I've asked some who say, absolutely, they're very important, but so is da 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 da. And I'm not saying that would have be any of you all, or accusing anybody of anything. What I'm suggesting is that we don't assume we know what our people care about. If there are pictures in their workplace or their work area, if there are team logos or things like that, a lot of times we'll jump to conclusions. And what I'm saying is, in all my time working with individuals and working with organizations, one of the most powerful transformation statements that I've ever seen applied and been a part of is a genuine question from a supervisor or a leader, one-on-one with their employee, asking them, hey, what kinds of things do you care about? What's important to you? Now, all of you are saying, well, oh, I'll do that, or if it's important to them, they'll let me know, and all those kinds of things. And I'd say 20 years ago, there's probably a whole lot more of people let you know what was important to them, or what they didn't like. There's a lot less of that now. And a lot of times I know that some of you all have lost employees because they didn't think somebody in their office cared about what they cared about. And I don't mean that they both enjoyed or had to both like the same things. I'm saying I have sat with hundreds of exit interviews where people say, well, I just left because nobody ever really cared to know what I cared about. The argument is there. We're in the workplace. We've got tasks. We've got instructions. We've got the mechanical things we need to do. Absolutely. But there's not many people that you spend more time with in your working life than the people that you work in the same office with or the same group with, especially for the period of time between your 25 and 65. So if you don't know what they care about, or if you're assuming what they care about, that's something that could be improved. And it's something that would make your workplace, it would definitely make your workplace more efficient and able to accomplish more things when folks feel like, and again, you don't have to agree. You don't, that's not the point. When I'm talking to new employees at different manufacturing facilities and small government offices, and I say, you've been here 30 days. What's something you like about the place? Almost to a person, they'll say, oh, people have interacted and people actually, seem to care about what I think. That is an employee that will stay and is going to perform. The folks who leave the exit interviews start the exact same way. Well, I've been here 30 days and not a single person has ever even considered what I care about or what I think about. Again, I know some of the folks I've worked with through the years who would say, doesn't matter. We have a workplace. This is what we're supposed to do, that kind of thing. Almost every one of you in your business or your organization, or definitely your county or city you live in, have been affected by the fact that there aren't as many employees. There aren't as many good employees. There aren't as many employees who you want to have as before. And so one way to kind of help that process is for you to spend this fast time. And by fast, what I mean is get to it, but make sure that it's very intentional. Don't wait 2 weeks. Don't have somebody come on board and say, well, I'm gonna sit down with them in 2 weeks, because right now they're learning everything else. In 2 weeks, if you haven't had a personal interaction with your new employees, or your supervisors haven't stepped into those new employees in 2 weeks, they won't be your employees. Because they got on Indeed and they found something that paid 15 cents more. And on the review, it says these people care. So I'm telling you that just because I know the problems that people are having with getting employees. I know the problems that people are having with keeping employees. And your internal customer service can have a positive impact on that. Fully. There's a couple people in my life that I really care a lot about who we just will never agree on this, and I don't like to use that word, but we will most likely never agree on multitasking. I want to challenge you to try to have interactions and not be multitasking, because what I believe is if you spend 5 minutes not multitasking, interacting with somebody, then it's better than 20 minutes. And then at the end, you say, okay, well, we had our 20-minute meeting this week. If you were multitasking the whole time, the other person doesn't feel like it was a 20-minute meeting. And the next one, they might not even show, or they might tell you, don't worry about it, because 5 minutes intentional is better than 20 minutes all over the place. And then face-to-face. Have them when you can have them. Have as much of that interaction when you're having that time. I'm not saying you need to see all your people all the time. That's not possible. If you are a remote, or if your people are remote, if you have more than 2 people, you're not going to see them all the time. That's not it at all. That's not even effective. But what I'm saying is, while you're having those interactions, those intentional interactions, make sure that to have as much of those as you can face to face. So I've done all the talking. I appreciate the folks who did put some chat on there. I'm going to take a second to see if there's questions or comments or smart remarks or anything that anybody wants to do on chat, or you can unmute and raise your hand, or however you want to do it. But I'm going to see if anybody has anything they'd like to add or take away, or let me know your opinions on.
Well, I want to thank everyone for coming today and joining us in our Wednesday webinar. If you're interested, and I want to thank Dwight, first of all. Thank you so much. It's always a pleasure working with you, Dwight. I'm going to put the evaluation in the chat box, and you all just copy that link and you can fill out the evaluation. And once we get the information from you all, again, I will email out certificates by Friday. I'm out of town today and tomorrow for a conference, but by Friday, I will get those certificates emailed out to you all. I thank you all for your time this morning.
Nicole, we're not done. Nicole,
Oh, you're not,
Nicole.
I'm sorry, we're not done. My
That's
apologies.
okay.
Go ahead, Dwight.
Nicole is multitasking, guys. And so when she turned the camera off, she started working on her other thing. No, I'm not gonna short them.
Okay,
I'm
okay.
not gonna short.
My
But
apologies. My
that's
apologies.
great.
You got
I'm glad you
15
got the
you got 15
evaluation.
minutes. My apologies. Go for it.
No problem. Thank you, Nicole. I just wanted to
Okay.
give them a chance. So
Okay,
I'm
great.
glad you got the evaluation up there. The evaluation really matters. If an evaluation doesn't matter, or if you don't use it, then don't offer it to somebody. One of the most interesting things in the world are the comment cards. To me, the comment cards, like in a restaurant or something like that. It's amazing to me. I can fill one out and I say, who do I need to give this to? And the stare that comes back from the server or from the person in the restaurant, it's like, I don't know who takes those. So, one of the things about internal customer service is you got to have that feedback. And you can have the feedback by people walking out the door, or you can have the feedback by asking them and then actually genuinely looking at those responses. There's a guy almost 20 years ago, I was doing a survey. Some of you probably heard of best places to work or greatest employers and things like that. There's all these kinds of surveys. So this organization I was working with, they had been requested to fill out the survey on best places to work. So I talked with the CEO and he was like, oh, absolutely. I know all our people are going to say we are. And then I talked to a couple of the senior leaders, and a couple of them were a little less confident that everybody's going to say it's a great place to work. And I said, well, the biggest thing is don't ask them and then not do anything about it. And so what happened was the CEO, after we had talked, the CEO called the company that had reached out to them and said, absolutely, we want to do it. I got my IT department to send you all the names of all the people in the office. And I got a phone call that said, hey, we're excited. Your company's moving forward with this. And I was like, wow, I didn't really think the operations manager, the folks in the plant, I didn't think they really wanted to do this. And I was like, okay, thanks. So I reached back out. Communication, so important. So I reached back out to the CEO and I said, hey, how did you convince the operations folks to do this? And he said, what do you mean? I said, well, I got a call from them and they said you gave them all the emails for all the people that are in the office, but we need to know how to communicate with all the people in the plant because they don't all necessarily have, they don't all necessarily have employee or company emails. And he goes, oh, well, I didn't think about that. And I was like, oh, okay. So you didn't think about how they were going to be contacted, or you didn't think about asking them? And he sat down and he looked at me and he said, I'm really upset because I didn't think about them. And so what I took from that was that a lot of the folks, and the survey came back and showed this, the folks in the office thought he was really engaged, thought he was part of their, they were with him, they were willing to follow him and that type of thing. And what we ended up doing was giving a paper survey, which wasn't as convenient. We gave a paper survey to everybody in the plant. Well, we gave them time off to do it. We set up kiosks where they could sit and do it, and but they literally got time off. The operations manager even said, why don't we give them give them something, they can have a snack and have a beverage, because it's a facility that was hot. It was a manufacturing facility. And we did that and I know what he was thinking, and I asked him after, but he was thinking that, maybe if we incentivize them a little bit, they'll kind of have some good numbers. So what we got was, and I'm just going to break it down to 1 to 5. What we got was the office was about a 3.5, almost a 4. And the plant was barely a 1. And so they call me in and they're like, you've been here 3 months. You've been working with some of our people for 3 months. What's going on? And I was like, what do you mean what's going on? And they're like, well, the people out in the plant hate working here, and the people in the office, they love it. And it was interesting to me because 3.5 or 3.75, and it doesn't mean love to me. That doesn't mean that they're completely happy. And a 1 definitely means that they're not happy. But the thing about the survey was when you go back and when we read the comments, not the numbers, because a lot of times, especially in the businesses that you guys work with or the organizations you work with, we look at that final number. And if that final number breaks the threshold, then we're good with it. But if you looked at what caused that number, or what prohibited that number, even sometimes that tells you a whole lot more than the number itself. So I would just say that I do think these 3 things make a difference. And then I've got one more slide, and the point of this is, how can you do something different, or how you can be different. This is my grandmother. I'm smiling because when I think about growing up, if there was the wrong decision to make, I usually made it at least once. Especially as a young person. I grew up in Frankfurt, and there's an area called Bell Point. My grandmother lived there. It's now down close by the river. A lot of, even 45 years ago, a lot of houses that needed repair and different things. So as a young kid, when I would go there, I loved checking out these abandoned houses, or finding these houses that were kind of falling apart and all that kind of stuff. But I would always, if I had a choice between decision A and decision B, most often I would take the wrong one, whichever one was the wrong one. And sometimes that caused physical harm. Sometimes it just was not the right thing to do. And my grandmother, who I spent a whole lot of time with, she, when we'd finally get to the point, because sometimes she knew I'd done something, or she knew what I'd done. Sometimes she didn't. She just knew I'd probably done something that I shouldn't have done. But when I was willing to be truthful, and when we get to the actual conclusion, her response was always, because I had other members of my family, this was not their response. Her response was always, well, next time, do something different. And as I was a little kid, I was just like, oh, yeah, thanks. I called her Granny. Thanks, Granny. Appreciate it. And I'd get back, and it wouldn't take me 5 minutes to make the wrong decision again. Well, flash forward 45 years, and I've worked with those people, and you do too, or you have them in your family, that it just seems like every time they might not choose the right choice. And so if your office is not perfectly efficient, getting everything done, and folks are every single day happy to be there, then you might have a chance to do something different. And that could be as simple as literally asking them, what kinds of things you care about. Hey, Mike, we've known each other 10 years. And 10 years ago, I know our boys were playing baseball, and we talked about baseball all the time, and our kids have grown up, and I'm proud of your kids, and you're proud of my kids. But, so what's important to you right now? And I will tell you that to a person on here, I think all of you would be surprised if you just ask the people that you work with that question. Now, not that any of you would, but sometimes when I'm working with an organization, I've put that out there, put that challenge out there. And then 2 weeks later, I get this message that said, well, I called 35 meetings in a row. I asked all my people what they care about. And towards the end, the people didn't seem to really be engaged in the conversation. Right. So don't post a meeting that says, I need to talk to every one of you all about what you care about, because that's not genuine. So do something different. Maybe it's spend a little more time with each person. All of us have people we like at work more than we like others. If you're the person who is exactly equally, you'd like everyone exactly the same, congratulations. I've yet to actually physically meet that person, but I've heard arguments from people, or people who tell me I treat everybody exactly the same. That's a whole nother topic, but everybody doesn't want to be treated the same. So do something different. After thinking about that, or if you just took a couple minutes today and thought, there's a relationship with this person I work with that I wish was different, or I wish was better, and you jotted down what you're going to do different, then there's going to have to be a plan. You're going to have to try. Some of you are so busy, you have so many things to do, you don't have enough people. This is going to interrupt everything. I would tell you that it may interrupt things momentarily, but it will make everything moving forward better. Now, this is what I would always hear from my grandmother after I screwed up again. Actually do something different. I mean, she had a third grade education. She grew up, her dad was a hog farmer. She grew up working on the farm. But life had taught her that decisions have consequences. And all of us know that. Some of us know it more than others. Some of us have learned it more painfully than others. But most of the time, what would happen when I would do something stupid and she would catch me, first thing I would do is deny that I did it. The second thing I would do is blame somebody else. And until I was about 7, I had a invisible friend. That's a whole nother thing. But and he got blamed for a whole lot of stuff. He's a terrible kid. But personally, as I grew older, I started trying to figure out better ways to try to say it wasn't my fault. So probably my parents, I would go to my grandmother's a lot of times on Thursday night and be there through Sunday night or Monday a lot of times. And so I was probably 12 or 13 the first time she said, you're bigger than me now. I can't spank you. I could whip you. Different age. Some of you are freaking out right now. Don't worry about it. It's all good. But the punishment, she couldn't do something physically to me. And she was watching me. I was it. I was the only kid there, and she was on her own. And so, we had to be able to get along. There didn't need to be a big blowout or big fight. And so, when I started doing that to a different level, she started changing how she interacted with me. Instead of telling me, or when she caught me, or when she found the thing that I had on me, or the stain, or the whatever it may be, instead of just telling it to me, we would sit down and we would talk about what other things could have been done. What else could you have done? What other activity could I have done as opposed to the thing I did? Or how do I not get in that situation again? So we always, a lot of you have to-do lists, and you've had that to-do list. I was talking to some folks who own a gym here in town, and I was asking them about, the New Year's rush, and then when's there another one? And right now is a big busy time for a lot of gyms, because people want to get that summer. They're going to get in there and all get, and they've owned the gym for probably 15 years, 16 years. And they said you can just watch it, clockwork. January, big push. Everybody's changing their life. It kind of goes down, goes down, goes down. May, big push, sun's coming out. And then it kind of goes down, goes down, goes down. And then right when it turns cold, big push, because, I can't get out anymore. I can't be outside in my garden. I can't be working out. And then it's da, 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 da. Well, the bottom line is the health of our community and the health of the people who actually pay every month to go to the gym, it hasn't improved dramatically. And it's because we think we're doing something different, but we're really not. And so I would just encourage you that if it's the idea you've tried before and you're back into a place where you're not doing as well as you could, that could be the change, and try to actually do something different. Big important part. And now I'm pushing, so I'm going to push on through, apologize, follow up, and see if it's working for them. The only way you're going to find that out is obviously there's going to be results, but results, can sometimes be misleading. Talk to them, ask them. And then when there are improvements, when they've done something different, or when that relationship you all have is different, recognize it. It's very important to know how your people want to be recognized. Some of them want a certificate. Some of them want to thank you. Some of them want a whole blowout cake and everything. So it's not the same for everybody. As a leader, you need to work on figuring that out. Don't assume and don't assume that 10 years ago you gave them a cake and now they're getting their 20th anniversary. They might not be eating cake right now. So again, have the conversation. So I don't want to take any more of your time than the hour either. So Nicole, now I'm officially done. And I want to turn it back over to you so that you have a couple minutes to wrap things up for KTC.
I'm so sorry. I tried to cut you off earlier.
Oh, no, I
My
understand.
apologies. I want to thank you, Dwight. Information I always
Huh?
need. I wrote some notes for myself because I needed that. So thank you for that. Does anyone have any questions or comments for Dwight? If not, again, I'm going to drop this link in the chat box. So make sure you just copy the link and fill out the evaluation. Your feedback is very important to us. It lets us plan for next year or future webinars that you'd like to see us have. We're always happy to add additional topics that help you, that you all want to see. So please make sure you take time to fill out the evaluation because we're always planning for future webinars and future courses. And so your feedback is greatly appreciated. Again, Dwight, thank you so much for
You
the
be
webinar
safe.
today. Yes. And if you all have any questions for me, I will put my email again in the chat box so you can email me.